Wish is a movie that I just find so frustrating. The concept of this movie is such an amazing idea, yet the storyline just isn't there. The idea of making a movie that serves to create an interconnected Disney universe all tied together by the idea of a wishing star is just such a good story pitch. When I heard that this is what Disney was doing for their 100-year anniversary, I was like, now that's a story worth the title of 100 years in the making. And if you watch this channel, you'll know that I'm a huge fan of the Pixar interconnected universe. So for Disney to do the same with their fairy tale movies is what made me so excited for this movie. It actually left theaters before I even got the chance to watch it, so I had to wait months and months for them to release it to physical media. And as I'm making this video, it only just released on Disney+. But now that I finally watched it, I'm kind of annoyed at just how frustratingly safe this movie played it. It's like this movie had every conceivable thing going for it, and yet it still managed to fall flat on its face. This is literally a perfect movie in every aspect except for the plot, which is pretty much the most important part of making a movie. The fact that this movie uses at least semi-traditional animation was one of the main selling points of this movie for me personally. Yes, CG is great and all, but it always bothered me how Disney was so quick to abandon this art form that they used for almost a century. Even though CG animation has its strong points, traditional animation just gives a whole different feel to the movie. It's almost like a children's storybook just came to life. At the beginning of the movie, they even have that classic storybook Once Upon a Time opening that they used in older Disney movies like Sleeping Beauty. It's just little things like that that make this feel like it's from a different era, before Disney became so modernized. And I honestly didn't think they even had it in them anymore to make something like this. I really just thought that those days were long gone and in the past. And even just the pacing of the movie feels a lot slower, just like it used to be in older Disney movies, back when the average attention span was way longer than it is now. But even after all of those positives going for it, this movie still manages to be so poorly written. It's actually crazy how bad the writing and plot structure is. It's like every basic rule of story writing just went out the window. A big issue is that this movie seriously has zero stakes. There isn't even really a main problem or conflict that drives the story. When Asha has her meeting with King Magnifico, she doesn't really even learn anything she didn't already know. She acts as if this is some crazy revelation that he doesn't grant everyone's wish. There's even a song later in the movie called Knowing What I Know Now. What do you know now? It's already common knowledge that not everyone's wish gets granted. That's the whole reason why he has wish ceremonies, and it's considered such a high honor to have your wish granted. So I feel like this movie has to think I'm stupid to believe that Asha never knew this when it was literally explained in the first scene how she was lucky to even be chosen in the first place. I just can't wrap my mind around how the audience can clearly understand this concept within the first 10 minutes of the movie, yet the protagonist who lived inside of this world for the last 17 years can't understand this. So fine, even if you let that slide, the movie must think I'm really dumb to believe that not only did Asha not realize that not everyone gets their wish granted, but by the end of the movie she gets the entire city of Rosas to act like they didn't know this. It's really crazy. This song, and really just all the songs in this movie, are actually really good. If they were used in a different context though, I just feel like they would have been so much more effective in terms of the story. Knowing What I Know Now could have actually been really good if they actually learned something they didn't already know. Anyway, on the topic of King Magnifico, the fact that they even try to sell him as a villain is just kinda stupid. This is worse than even having a twist villain. It was almost like having a twist villain, but the twist takes place in the first 15 minutes of the movie and yet isn't even a twist at all. As I explained earlier, there's nothing we learn about him that we didn't already know, but for some reason this comes as a surprise to the main character. He didn't do anything wrong, he's just being a king. He's just being in charge, which is exactly what a king is supposed to do. When the people decide that they don't like that, that's fine, but all things considered, he's actually a pretty good king that expresses his care for his people. He isn't even an oppressive ruler in any way. People choose to live in the kingdom willingly and can leave freely at any time. They even explain at the beginning of the movie that he created his kingdom to be a safe haven from danger, because of an experience he had at a young age where his family was attacked by raiders. This is how his character was set up at the start. The dumbest decision they made was to turn him evil because he was possessed by magic. Because after he harnesses the power of this book, he just kind of turns evil. Everything he does after this point doesn't even align with the way he was initially characterized. It doesn't even make sense what he's going for at this point. He starts becoming really power hungry, but for what? He's already the king. What does he even want with this power? It's not like they explained how he plans to take over other kingdoms or anything like that. He just acts evil because the story needs him to be. His whole storyline basically goes like this. He's a good king that wants the best for his kingdom. Then Asha decides that he's a bad guy even though he didn't do anything wrong. Then he actually becomes the bad guy for no reason other than to show us that Asha was right the whole time, even though she had no reason to be right. There's one thing that annoys me even more than King Magnifico in this movie though, and it's two specific characters, Queen Amaya and then this other guy named Simon. These two characters have really similar problems. Let me start with Queen Amaya. In this movie, she decides to betray King Magnifico and join Asha's rebellion. So I remember what I said earlier in the video about how the movie assumes you're dumb to think that Asha was oblivious to the fact that not every wish gets granted. And it assumes you're really dumb to believe that the entire city of roses didn't realize this. Now this is just taking it to a whole new level to try to tell me that not even his wife knew him well enough to know that he was under a spell. She even knew the book was dangerous, so why wouldn't you assume that he was being possessed when you literally walk down the stairs to hear him evil laughing like a maniac and raving about power? If I as a viewer could come to that conclusion after knowing this guy for 1 hour on the dot by this point in the movie, then how in the world would she not realize this too? Up to this point, she's been backing him up in every action, and now all of a sudden she just betrays him so suddenly. What's kind of ironic too is that you notice at the end that it's almost as if this evil spell just went away and he's confused at what even happened. And at this point she won't even just hear him out, and instead orders him to be locked in the dungeon. Like what? Who's the real villain here? So now on to the other traitor, Simon. This guy was so undercharacterized that I legit didn't even realize he was in the movie until he has his betrayal scene. He was never shown to be a loyal friend to Asha in the first place, so how am I even supposed to feel upset when he betrays her? And then at the end he's just like, oh sorry, I guess I learned my lesson now. And it's hard for me to even have as much of a problem with him as I do with Queen Amaya because he's just so unimportant to the story in general. They could have just left out this random side conflict and nothing would have changed. So those are the main issues that I have with the plot and structure of this movie, but there's one thing that I want to touch on that I haven't heard anyone really talk about. This movie is the most direct confirmation we have that all Disney movies are taking place in a shared universe. We see characters such as Peter Pan and Bambi have brief appearances in the movie, and it's revealed that Valentino was basically the founder of Zootopia. But I just feel like they could have done so much more in terms of connections. After all, this was made for Disney's 100th anniversary. There would have been no better time to just go all out and involve characters from other Disney movies as part of the plot. It would have made for such good marketing too, but they just had to play it so safe. This is why this movie annoys me so much. It had everything going for it, yet it failed in the most basic aspects. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you thought of Wish. Thanks for watching, and bye.